Alcatraz East Crime Museum is a popular attraction in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Featuring crime history in the United States, it is modeled after the infamous Alcatraz prison in San Francisco, but you won't find any inmates here, only interesting displays and artifacts of some of the most historical crime stories in the country. Thank you for joining me. It is so good to be back to work. Today I have with me Allie Pennington, Artifact and Program Manager from Alcatraz East Crime Museum, right across the street basically here in Pigeon Forge. Allie, thank you so much for being a guest with me this evening.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I really appreciate it. Listen, I love that. That building is just such a... I hate to say attraction. Of course, it's an attraction, but it draws your eye when you go by it because it looks like a big prison there. So I want to start out by saying, first of all, I'm a huge true crime fan. Like, I don't know who isn't in these days. Like, I started out with Dateline NBC.
Yep.
Like 32 years ago when they first started airing. And then, of course, I watch all the true crime on YouTube, just anything I can get my hands on true crime. Do you love true crime, too?
I mean, I kind of have to. It's kind of a pitfall of the job, requirement almost.
But it's so interesting. I mean, I think I like it for the psychological aspect because, psychology was my major in both degrees. But I want to talk about... what Alcatraz East Crime Museum is, if you want to tell the viewers what it is.
Sure. So we cover all things crime and punishment. So anything American crime and punishment you'll find under our roof. Obviously, we can't cover every single case because, unfortunately, it's just too big of a topic. But we cover everything from serial killers to law enforcement to white-collar crime, famous trials, famous prisons, pretty much everything under that umbrella.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. I'm going to have to come over and just spend a whole entire Saturday or maybe a weekday. What's your least crowded? Because that's when I want to go.
This time of year, every day is crowded. Yeah.
So what inspired the creation of this museum?
So originally we opened as the National Museum of Crime and Punishment in Washington, D.C., and that opened in 2008. And we partnered with John Walsh, so we hosted the America's Most Wanted home studio in the D.C. Museum. And then when that museum closed in 2014, 2015, the whole collection picked up and moved over here.
Oh, wow.
So we really just thought that there needed to be a place that was education forward and education focused to talk about the darker side of American history. And with that education focus, we really push for awareness and giving people all of the information that they need to potentially protect themselves from these situations that have led to such horrible events for people.
I love that. I love that you don't just or that you don't exploit victims, but you give knowledge to people to avoid maybe being a victim. I love that because some of the people on YouTube that I watch, some of the channels, they do exploit people just for clicks and views and to make money. But I love that you also offer that knowledge too, as how not to put yourself, or maybe if you see a situation, how to get out of it or whatever. I love that. So
well, we also work really closely with law enforcement, and so working with them helps us provide better knowledge for these are the scams that are going on right now, or these are the situations that we're seeing more of and how to protect themselves. So we are very proud of our local law enforcement, but we work with law enforcement on all levels.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, we got I love the law enforcement as well. I mean, they're there, they put their lives on the line every day to protect us, the citizens, and they don't have to do that, but they do. And God knows they don't do it for the pay, because law enforcement officers don't get paid much. They're like teachers, and I find that like public servants like that, the pay is low, but they do it because they love it. It's their calling. So I appreciate it. So how does the museum approach the study of American crime history? Like, what are some of the unique things that you guys have there?
Yeah, so I mean, we've got a huge collection of artifacts. There's hundreds of them on display. It really depends on the exhibit and depends on the display that we're looking at. We have worked with a number of people in the past who are survivors of crimes who want their story told. And so we've had that angle come through. Recently, we opened a exhibit on cults and human trafficking, power, and things like that. And we were so honored to work with Sarah Edmondson of the NXIVM cult, which was in the news a couple of years ago, to help tell her story and her experience in NXIVM. And so, it was an honor to work with her and and really get to tell her story. So that is at the core of what we really want to do, is to make sure that these stories are told for the victims and for the survivors of these crimes, but then also to kind of raise awareness for all of these situations and how people have really survived these things.
Yeah. And you know what happens? I think that a lot of times when we go through something, we feel alone. And, you know, maybe somebody feels alone, but then they come over there just as part of their trip to Pigeon Forge, and they see that and they're like, hey, I went through that too. And that helps them to know that there's other people out there, and maybe it would cause them to reach out for help.
Right.
So I love that. You know, I mean, it's not just about, hey, come in here and look at, you know, something dark, whatever.
Right.
So, you know, so what are some of the artifacts that you have from, I already know one I want to ask you about, and I can't wait to come see this. And I know it probably kind of sick of me to want to see this, but you have OJ's Bronco.
We do.
OJ Simpson's Bronco.
Yeah.
How in the world did y'all manage to get that?
So with the Bronco, like others, we don't really talk about our collection practices just because we've got so many, you know, contracts and things with dealers. With the Bronco, it is actually the one from the OJ chase, because there are two that are associated with the OJ Simpson case and the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. The one that he was driving not during the chase was actually owned by Hertz, and so after the trial it was taken in as evidence, and basically Hertz said they didn't want it, and so it was dismantled for parts. So the one that we have originally belonged to Al Cowlings, who was the driver during the OJ chase, and it was used in that infamous slow speed chase. It's really interesting to see, because I wasn't around for that.
I knew you were going to say that.
I was like, I was not around for that one.
I feel so burnt by that.
I'm so sorry, but I wasn't around for that one. And so it's really interesting to see when people, you know, walk into the car gallery and see the Bronco. It's cool to see, like, parents who are around talk to their kids who weren't around, or even like people my age talking to older generations, or, you know, older sisters or older brothers who were around, who remember exactly where they were when they were watching that chase happen live on TV. And those are the interactions that I find the most rewarding, because I think it's really interesting to see those different views of histories intersect with each other.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I was at the house watching that too, like everybody else. And I watched that entire trial. You know, the trial lasted around close to 10 months. And so my son was little at the time. And so me and my best friend Joyce, like, if I had to go somewhere to the grocery store, she would watch it at her house. And I would call her and say, what happened today? And vice versa. We were so immersed in that, which I think the whole entire world was. And so to know that Bronco that was in the chase is over there, I'm like, man, I got to come see that. So yeah. But how does the public react? I mean, I know you said that people are like, they like to see it, but overall, have you ever had any flack from people that say you shouldn't? Because, you know, a lot of people think that you shouldn't spotlight the criminal, but spotlight the victim instead. But listen, if we didn't learn about the criminal, then we wouldn't have the information needed to maybe prevent crimes. So have you guys ever gotten any flack?
So, I mean, we have. I think with anything, there are going to be people who, you know, oppose what you're doing. With us, and us being education forward, in every aspect that we possibly can, we try to name as many victims as we know. And because it's not just the story of Ted Bundy or the story of Jeffrey Dahmer. It's the story of, you know, Kimberly Leach or Tony Hughes. So, like, we try in everything we possibly can to give the victims a name, give them a face, so that they're remembered as well. But with everything, you're going to have people who oppose what you're doing or who don't like what you're doing. But for the most part, we really, you know, people like the museum, and people like the fact that we're opening those conversations. We get school groups in every once in a while and throughout the year, and teachers and parents have come back to us and been like, you've opened this conversation with our kids so that we can then talk about, like, okay, this is what happened to these people. This is how you stay safe. And so that, I think, speaks for itself, that there's more of that than the negative backlash. For
Yeah,
sure.
I love that you have both sides. Like you have the crime, like I said, you have the crime, and then you have the education as well.
Yeah.
I love that, and it can open that conversation between parents and even like small children. First thing we teach our kids is don't talk to strangers. Stranger danger and all that stuff. So, so how does a museum engage visitors like in an interactive experience? What do you have there that you could do that with?
We have so many interactives. We have well over 100 interactives as well throughout the museum. And everything from our interactive CSI lab where you talk about ballistics or you talk about fingerprinting. We've got interactives for, police training and looking at what police do to prepare themselves for active duty and things like that. What we have realized is that very small kids and younger audiences will stay more focused on what is on their level and what they see and what they comprehend. So we do have interactives throughout the museum with questions specifically for younger audiences and for younger patrons who come in about like internet safety and, safety walking to the bus stop and things like that. And so because it's on their level and because it's things that they would be, interested in or know about, they tend to focus on those. And then the adults who are more interested in maybe the crime aspect of it, will focus on the things that they're interested in.
Yeah, so there's something for everybody.
There's
I love
something
that.
for everybody.
And listen, when you're on vacation and you have little kids, you want them to have fun because, that's basically, like, if I hate to say this, but if your kids don't have fun on vacation, mommy and daddy ain't going to do either. I had a son, he was little once. And so I'm glad that you have that interactive stuff for them as well so that the parents can have fun too while they're there in there. So how long does it typically take if you want to go through the entire museum, how long does it typically take?
We usually recommend carving out 2.5 hours to 3 hours, but it's self-guided, so it really depends on the group. There's some people who fly through it and go in through an hour. There are people who are there all day long. So it really depends on what your interest level is, and some people will spend more time in certain galleries or on certain topics, but broad spectrum, we recommend about 2.5 hours for a tour.
I love that. I went to another attraction here in town once a few years ago, and I was in there for 4.5 hours. I was alone, and I was like, you know what? I'm by myself. I'm going to take my time. And I really took in every single area, every single corner of that place. So yeah, that's how I am. If I'm going to go somewhere, might take the effort to come over there and do it. I'm gonna enjoy myself. So you also have, I love this, a crime library where people can come and do research, maybe if they have a school paper or if they just want to learn. How does that work? Are there computers there? How does that work?
So our crime library is entirely on our website. So it's free access. Anybody can access it. Our website's just alcatrazeast.com. And we cover as many topics as we possibly can. But it's, it covers everything. So if someone needs to get some background knowledge on something, or if they want to, get a head start before they visit the museum, they can go onto our crime library and look through that and kind of really understand certain cases, or maybe learn something new about a case that they've already known about.
Yeah. But if you guys use this for research for a paper, cite the crime museum.
Yes,
on your papers, please cite.
Yes,
give credit
please.
there. So, what are some of your newest exhibits that you literally just opened?
Yeah, so we've got 4 temporary exhibit spaces. Currently, we have an exhibit about Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman because it was, I think, the 30th anniversary of that this year. We also have an exhibit about the JFK assassination and the conspiracies around the JFK assassination. It opened last year, but we've just entered our 2nd year for the JFK exhibit, and we put some new stuff out. So it's fresh for anybody who's been through it already. We are getting ready to open an exhibit on Ted Bundy in October, so we haven't released a lot of information about it yet, but we are going to have a Ted Bundy exhibit come out. Currently in that space, though, is Bonnie and Clyde, who are a classic criminal duo for sure. And then we also are getting ready to open an exhibit about the Watergate scandal.
Ooh, wow. Now, see, okay, so I'll just tell you now, I'm completely intrigued by JFK. I have watched every documentary I can find. I went to Daily Plaza twice. You know, went up and looked in that library window. Wondered. I'm a conspiracy theorist, y'all. I really am. Like, I will buy into anything other than probably like what they're putting out. I'm like, no. And so it is that. And so Daily Plaza is so tiny when you're there. It's a lot smaller than you think. And so I'm like, how did that guy shoot out that window? So I would love. I could probably stay all day in that. Now the Jeffrey Dahmer stuff. Oh, I can't. I'm not. Yeah, I get. He's one that I can't watch anything on because that really creeps me out.
Yeah, he's definitely one that I think most people know about, and obviously there was a fairly large Netflix special that came out last year or 2 years ago, and so renewed interest came back into Dahmer and all of that. Yeah, he's creepy. Yeah, they're really, all creepy, but particularly him. He's
king
a little
creep.
odd. Yeah,
I can't. Like I said, I can't even allow my mind to go there. I'm afraid of where it would take me. I'm just like, no. But I would like to see the Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman. You know, my hearts went out to those two families. I mean, it was so sad. And like I said, I watched that whole entire trial, and you know, still 30 years later, you know, I still sometimes will watch an episode of it on YouTube. You know, I'll find it on YouTube. So, so here's what I love. You actually have speakers that come. You had a speaker who was actually a guest on my show, Arthur Bohannon.
Love Arthur Bohannon.
Love him too.
He's so sweet. I love that man.
I love him too. And you know, he is such an asset to the world of forensics. So, and yeah, he is very sweet too. So what are some of the other speakers that you try to have in there? Like, you know, Arthur was, he invented the how to find latex or latex, latex, y'all. Latent fingerprints on skin. So who are some of the other people you try to have?
So he's been one that has come back year after year after year. We haven't had many come in as of late. So really Arthur Bohannon is the one that comes back all of the time. And it's always an honor to get to see him speak about his experience in 9/11 and working on their team at Ground Zero. So
he has so much to share. Listen, I'm telling you, he has lived, seems like 4 or 5 lives in one life.
Yes.
He has done so much, and he is so fascinating. And, you know, we try to keep it at 30 minutes, but I always usually go over. But I could have sat and talked to him for hours. I mean, he is just so interesting. His life is so interesting. You also have something called Junior Detectives. Tell the audience about that.
So Junior Detectives, it is basically a scavenger hunt throughout the museum that guests can do. And it helps them stay engaged as they walk through the museum, and they kind of fill out this scavenger hunt as they go through and looking for this new information. And then at the end of their tour, they can get a prize if they have finished everything all the way through the museum.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So I bet that makes them happy when they do that.
It does.
Yeah. So you also have, which I love this, a graffiti contest coming up. Listen, I think, and I know graffiti is probably illegal most places, but I think that graffiti artists are artists. I mean, when you see a train going by and that graffiti on there, it's beautiful. I mean, I know it's probably illegal, but it's beautiful. So that sounds really interesting. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, just like you said, it's illegal most places. It's considered vandalism a lot of places. So the graffiti contest was started to give those artists, because they are artists and they are so talented, to give them a space to show off their artwork and show their talents in a space that wasn't illegal and that wasn't vandalism, but that was just, you know, good old-fashioned art. And it really is cool to watch them work and watch them kind of learn from each other as the contest goes on. And then, of course, the winners and the finalists get a chance to have their work in the museum. And so it's, you know, it's always really cool to watch.
And the
be a part
prize is
of.
huge, too. It's like a cash prize. It's a huge cash prize, because I thought, I might try my hand at it. Even though, listen, I might could paint a spot on a canvas, and that's about it. But still, I mean, I think that they are truly artists. Artists who maybe haven't had a chance, you know, because most places where you see it is like rural or urban, or is it rural or urban? Whatever.
Both.
You know,
it's a little of both. I mean, you find graffiti everywhere.
Yeah. And so they just haven't had a chance to go to art school or to, you know, maybe you know, be an artist. So they put their art out somewhere. So there's certain times a year where you host groups too, like Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, homeschooled children.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so we have homeschool days usually in the spring and the fall. I don't know that we've put official days on the fall section yet, but Girl Scout and Boy Scout troop programs we do year round. Basically, it is a CSI forensics lab, and it is a verified Girl Scout and Boy Scout patch. So they get an official patch when they do our program, where they learn how to fingerprint. They talk about things like blood spatter and blood spatter analysis, and they look at observation and if they can remember things that they've seen. And so it's actually a really, really cool program that we have for girls and Boy Scouts. But yeah, we do those year round. They just have to contact our group sales department and they can, pick a day and sign up and do that program.
Yeah, man, I love that. I love what you're doing. I love the education side of it.
Yeah.
Because honestly, before you came, I didn't know you did all that. I thought it was just, you go and you look at the stuff and that's it. But I love the fact that you teach. You're teaching as well. So, listen, I want to thank you for coming on today. This has been so interesting. And Alcatraz East Crime Museum is definitely on my to-do list.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching today. We're going to link everything you need to know. Well, we're going to link the website on the screen at the end of the show, so just stay tuned for that. And join me again next week for another great episode. And remember to always dream big, because big dreams do come true.